What is up, my friends? Welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we're going to be talking about vinyl. Now, I know this is mainly a retro video game channel, but I feel like vinyl kind of falls under that retro umbrella. And the topic of this video has some parallels to the retro video game industry and a problem that's been plaguing it for quite a while now. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get into it. So for the past year or so, I've really been getting into vinyl, and it's something that I fought really hard. And not because I didn't want to collect vinyl or I don't like records. It's just that sometimes when I really get interested in something, I tend to kind of go all in, and I watch a lot of content on it and, just try to find out the best way to tweak your setup and all the best accessories, the do's and don'ts.
You're one of those people.
And I really didn't want to go down that rabbit hole, but unfortunately, that's what I've been doing for the past year. And to be perfectly honest, I'm actually really enjoying it. But when you start collecting vinyl, there are staples that you want to get, records that are pretty much essential for anyone that's just starting out and just getting into vinyl. And one of those staples was Nirvana's Nevermind. Now, I wasn't really familiar with all the different pressings of Nevermind and the years that each one was released or the color of the vinyl. I just knew that I wanted one that sounded really good and that fit into my budget. And I just happened to be at a guy's house buying some vinyl, and he gave me a tip that there was somebody on Facebook selling 4 Nirvana albums for $50.
I think my pants just shit their pants.
So I messaged the seller, and I was very lucky enough to be able to purchase those 4 albums. So I drove to his house, and he invited me in to take a look at them. And the first one that I gravitated towards was Nevermind, because it was the one that I wanted the most. So I pulled the album out of the sleeve, and again, I'm not familiar with all these different colors and pressings. And I noticed that the vinyl was pink. So I thought that was odd, and I actually said out loud, like, this one's pink. And he was like,
yeah, bro, I don't really care about that. Nirvana's my favorite band, and I don't really care about the color of the vinyl. It's all about the music.
And I was like, yeah, I know, I get it. I mean, I don't care if it's black, brown, purple, whatever. I just didn't know that this pink version existed. Like, did you get it at a Walmart? Was it an exclusive there? And he was like,
no, I got it like a few years back online somewhere.
So I was like, whatever. So I checked out the other 3, show you those now. So the first one is the MTV Unplugged. This is the purple opaque. Next one is Live at the Paramount. This is the double orange. And the next one is the black greatest hits that I guess this came out after Kurt's death with You Know You're Right on there. Very cool to have all of these plus Nevermind for $50. So everything seemed to check out. I paid the guy, I drove home, and the first thing I did when I got home was just do a little research on these 4 records and just find out, if I got a good deal, which I'm pretty sure that I did, but when they were all released and kind of what they go for in the condition that they were in. And the one that I checked first was obviously the Nevermind pink vinyl, which I was most concerned about. So I go to Google, I type that in, Nirvana, pink, Nevermind, and nothing comes up. I go to eBay, I type the same thing in, and there's no listings. So I'm getting a little worried at this point. I'm thinking either I got some super rare reissue or I've got a fake.
Fake.
I go to Discogs, which I probably should have did first, but on Discogs, now keep in mind it didn't really have the exact description of what I have, but it pretty much did list in there a pink version that was sold around the early 2000s, and they called it unofficial. Now, some other sites were just calling it flat out fake, but again, it wasn't an exact description of what I had, but I was pretty sure at this point that this was a fake.
God, son of a bitch!
So as I'm looking at it, I'm inspecting the cover front to back. I pull out the sleeve again and notice that the sleeve does not have anything on it. The graphic on the front is very monochromatic. There's a lot of blue, there's not a lot of variation in the color. The baby, there's no detail. The dollar bill, there's a lot of pixelization. And I noticed that the jacket was very flimsy. If you hold it at the end, it just wanted to bend. The barcode seemed to be a little sus, and it was in the wrong place. The whole thing was just like red flags everywhere. I also noticed that there was some blemishes in the vinyl itself on each side. Now I know this is something that can happen. It's definitely common in some those Target pressings, but this was not one of those marbled ones. These were clearly blemishes in the vinyl itself during the pressing. So obviously I was pretty bummed. I knew at this point that this was not an official release. So I thought, well, let's just see how it sounds. You know, the proof's in the pudding. So I put it on my turntable. I did not adjust the volume at all. I pretty much kept it to where it was the last record that I played. And immediately I noticed that it was very low. I had to like bump it up 3 notches, which was not a good sign. So now I'm like, well, I gotta get the real thing here. This is killing me. So I look online and Target is selling, I think it was like that 2019 gray reissue. It was only $24.99 if you bought it online, and I had some like Target Red Circle credit that I could apply towards that was in my account. So it was only like a little over $20. It was ready in a couple hours to pick up. I brought it home, and comparing the two side by side, that's when it was really apparent that this was just not only a fake, but a really bad one. So naturally, I did a sound comparison between the Repro and the Target reissue, and my initial impressions were confirmed. And I know this because I broke out my trusty Radio Shack sound level meter, and I noticed a 3 decibel difference between the two using the same song on the same volume. The Repro was just very quiet, very lacking in detail, whereas the 2019 reissue from Target was just very punchy, in your face. It just kind of felt like somebody had opened up a window. But it does kind of make you wonder, why make a fake of something that's readily available? And maybe back in the early 2000s, this album was kind of hard to come by. Maybe it was more expensive back then than it is now. I don't really know. It's not something that I was seeking out. But I do know that whoever made this did it for the sole purpose of deceiving the buyer. They were passing this off as something that was official, and it clearly is not. And I don't blame the person that sold this to me. I don't think that he knew, and I didn't send him any nasty messages or anything. I think that the average person, if they got this album, if they didn't have something to look at, you know, in comparison, a one-to-one, they probably would never know. And if you didn't have a trained ear, or maybe your setup wasn't that great, you wouldn't know the difference, because the songs played, the vinyl itself was in decent shape. You know, you probably would think the blemishes are just something that was supposed to be there. So I don't really blame the guy that sold it to me. But like in the video game world, reproductions are made all the time, but a lot of those are games that are no longer being made, like Pokemon games, for instance. They were last made in cartridge form in like the 90s. So there's only so many to go around. There's a big opportunity for people to make these as close to the real thing as possible and pass them off as the real thing. They can make manuals and cases, everything that's almost identical. And this is pretty much the same thing. Now, I realize that some people might call this a bootleg. I don't think that it's a bootleg, because from what I know from bootlegs, they're usually things they're basically upfront about a bootleg, and it's usually of something like the source came from something that doesn't exist a lot of the times. Whereas this obviously is an album that's been in circulation for a while and readily available at your local Walmart or Amazon.com. I mean, I can understand if this was an album like some rare Beatles album or some Kiss album that cost sometimes hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. They're super rare. There wasn't very many made. So you're buying a reproduction just so you can have a vinyl version of that, because you'll probably never own the real thing. That part I get. This was not the case with this, and this was not the reason that the person sold this. It was probably on eBay, and they probably had it cheaper than other versions of Nevermind, and they probably even called it a limited edition pink, something of that nature. So this person probably thought, hey, cool, I'm saving a few bucks, and it's pink. But again, you're getting a very, very inferior version of Nevermind. So what, Pat, you might be asking, are you planning on doing with this unofficial fake version of Nevermind?
I don't care!
Well, I think initially my thought was, I'll just play it so I can keep this Target reissue in very good condition, and maybe just display this on the wall and never have to take it out of the sleeve. But you know, it's something that when I look at that, it's kind of painful, and the fact that it sounds like shit, it just makes me not want to ever play it again. And even though there's a story behind it, it's just not something that I really want to own. I think I'm going to probably move it on to somebody else. I can't really sell it on Discogs from what I have read, but I can put it on Marketplace and be very transparent about what this is. Let the person know that this is an unofficial version, and maybe I'll find somebody that just has everything Nirvana vinyl or every version of Nevermind, and they just don't have this particular color of these unofficial reissues. I think that's probably what I'm going to end up doing.
That's a horrible idea.
But hopefully this video can help out the next person who's just getting into vinyl like myself, and they can see that there are these fake reproduction albums floating around, and a lot of times that they are just of common albums that you can still buy on store shelves. And unfortunately, that's just the world we live in now. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this video. If you have any information on this unofficial version of Nevermind, please let me know in the comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. And as always, if you enjoyed the video or you learned something, please make sure you hit that thumbs up on the way out and turn that notification bell so you know when I upload videos like this one. All right, guys, thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.